Hello and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. Today we're going to talk about the hydroponic cultivation of a remarkable plant, and that is, it's not even a flowering plant, it's a fern. It's called Azolla. You may have heard of it, you may have not, but it's a fern that grows in aquatic systems, and it is extremely highly productive to the point where it can become an invasive plant if it gets into aquatic ecosystems. And it is grown hydroponically around the world, mainly as a fodder, so an animal feed. And because it grows so fast and because there's some unique features about Azolla. So it's a fern, so it doesn't produce flowers or fruits. So it doesn't waste energy on that. So everything goes into biomass. It can double its biomass in just under 2 days if the conditions are correct. So imagine that you can have a system that's just keep on producing biomass and biomass every 2 days. That's more than enough to feed the animals if you've got a big enough unit. The plant can yield 8 to 10 tons of fresh matter per hect in Asian paddy fields. Now that's important because not only can that Azolla be harvested away from the paddy field where rice is being grown, it's also fixing nitrogen as well. So it's adding nitrogen to the system because Azolla, one of the key features I've not mentioned is it fixes atmospheric nitrogen, just like, say, a bean plant would. And so you're adding nitrogen to the system, and that also means that you don't need to feed it nitrogen fertilizer. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Why is everyone not growing Azolla hydroponically? The typical limiting factor in its growth is phosphorus. And so you actually, when you look at some of the Azolla hydroponic farms, you'll find that they're often adding phosphate and superphosphate, things like this, forms of phosphorus. And then they're also using in Asia, and sort of like the Indian subcontinent, they're using cow dung as cattle dung as the fertilizer and then adding a bit of phosphorus. Interestingly, I read a report today as well that in Holland they're recycling nitrogen and phosphorus from human waste, and that's going into hydroponic cucumbers. So not as, might sound a bad dung, but they're using it in Holland in high value greenhouses as well. So as I say, it's a weed in many parts of the plants. Many parts of the world it's called a mosquito fern, but if it's contained, it is extremely useful as a fodder, and it can be. The beauty of it is that the hydroponic systems can be very, very simple. You almost don't need circulation. The deep water culture, you don't need an air tank. Obviously, this will improve production, but you can literally just have a tank with fertilizer in and open to the air, and just put some Azolla in there, some starting culture, and it'll just grow and grow. It's growing so fast that it doesn't really get any issues. So fantastic if you're growing, or if you're looking after livestock in areas where you struggle with production of like grass, or feed costs are expensive and feed costs are going up and up and up. So solutions like this that can produce a product that's very high in amino acids, because it's fixing its own nitrogen, it can get the nitrogen required for the amino acids, for the protein, then it's a fantastic potential solution for this. So since definitely something more people should be looking at, because any type of livestock really can use Azolla. Don't think it's fit for human consumption though. So especially if you're not using cow dung to fertilize it, just needs a quick rinse though for animal feed. So as I say, it can be grown in these sorts of shallow troughs or basins. If you Google it, you'll find these sort of 5 to 15 centimeters deep. No substrate required because the Azolla floats on the surface. It's not like an algae. We talked about microalgae in the past and microalgae cultivation. There, sterilization is everything. With Azolla, it doesn't need to be sterile at all. It'll just be open to the air. It does require fairly high temperatures though, so that's why 18 to 28 degrees Celsius. And so below that, you might get problems. Nutrient film technique, you could use nutrient film technique or floating raft systems, but often that's for really large, very large systems. The key thing here is that the humidity needs to be fairly high, so 60 to 80% humidity. That's much higher than most hydroponic crops. The things like the temperature and the pH of the fertigation solution, they're all fairly standard. Obviously, you don't need to add nitrogen to your system, and it can And that can be a good way of reducing the environmental impact of your hydroponic system and your animal feed system, really, is that you completely eliminate the need for nitrogen. So not sure on CO2 enrichment, what the effect that would have. It grows so fast and so quickly that it's thought that it was led to an ice age when Azolla really got going when was it? During the Eocene, so 56 to 36 million years ago. It fixed so much carbon that it triggered global cooling of this one plant. Azolla is a genus of 7 species of aquatic ferns. But yeah, they were growing so fast 56 million years ago that it triggered an ice age. That's some serious growth. So yeah, a couple of other amazing facts about Azolla. It's called mosquito fern because in paddy fields it grows so fast and causes this blanket to appear on the surface that mosquitoes can't get into the paddy field and lay their eggs and cause larvae to grow. So it's actually good at controlling mosquitoes in those systems, or it's thought to. And it can also be used to remove chromium, nickel, copper, zinc, and lead from wastewater effluent. So in polluted areas, you can potentially remove these nasty chemicals. We had a leak of it was in the news today. There was a leak of radioactive water up in Scotland from a nuclear base. But I think that was in a lock, and it was a saltwater lock. So that would be no good in this situation because Azolla would not tolerate. It's a freshwater species, so of no good there. But yeah, potentially if you've got a river that's being contaminated with chromium, nickel, copper, zinc, and lead, then you could potentially grow Azolla in those systems to mop up those metals. So if you're interested in growing Azolla for fodder, you could be harvesting every 3 to 5 days, serious amounts. You need to harvest them often, otherwise the plants will start to stagnate and you get dieback and you'll start to get stagnant conditions and it'll be a bit smelly. And you might need to do something. If it's an open outdoor system, you might need to look at how you keep the plants alive during the winter as well, if you're in, say, Europe or North America. So, as I say, it can be grown on its own or to support other crops that might be grown in a sort of a deep water system, like, the rice in a paddy field. But yeah, something to look into. Azolla is also just like a model plant species for ferns. It'll be propagated by spores, so you can't buy seeds of Azolla. Your probably best bet is to just go and harvest some Azolla from a pond. Make sure you know what you're looking for, or speak to somebody who is already growing Azolla for fodder and either ask them for a free sample or purchase a few samples. I'm sure eBay probably has some Azolla for sale. Let's have a look. Let's go on to eBay and see what comes up. Let's type in Azolla, see how much Azolla is going to cost. I can buy some curtains, that for £75, that's all right. Azolla as a feed ingredient, a paperback book for £45. I won't be doing that. Here we go. Duckweed eliminator, floating pond rake. Oh no, that's for killing Azolla where it becomes invasive. So maybe not. Maybe Azolla is so common that you don't need to purchase it. Just go to your local canal. If you're in the UK, it's one of those ones that make canals look almost like lawn green or bowling green type look to them. So yeah, if you're interested in Azolla, if you've grown Azolla, let me know. I'd love to know your experiences, and more than happy to feature your experiences on a future podcast episode. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Thank you very much for listening. Until tomorrow, goodbye.